They talked like they had known each other longer than an afternoon. There, at that sun-drenched bus stop, waiting for a ride that seemed determined to never arrive, two worlds collided. I was on my way home from a job interview. I was pretty sure I'd bombed. My tie felt like a noose, and my confidence was somewhere around my ankles. She, on the other hand, was a splash of color against the drab gray of the city. A sketchbook lay open on her lap, her fingers smudged with charcoal, and a smile played on her lips as she watched the world go by. I must have looked as miserable as I felt, because she was the first to speak. "Tough day?" she asked, her voice like wind chimes. He just nodded, not really in the mood to unload my failures on a complete stranger. But she didn't press. Instead, she tilted her sketchbook towards me. On the page was a surprisingly detailed, almost whimsical drawing of a grumpy-looking pigeon pecking at a discarded French fry. "This guy gets it," she said, and I couldn't help but laugh. It was the first real laugh I'd had all day. That broke the ice. Her name was Alera, and she was an artist who saw stories everywhere. In the cracks of the pavement, in the way the leaves danced in the wind, in the weary faces of strangers at a bus stop. She told me about her dream of having her own gallery one day, a place filled with art that made people feel something, anything. She believed art was a conversation, a bridge between souls. As she spoke, her eyes sparkled with a passion that was so infectious. I found myself forgetting all about my disastrous interview. I told her my name was Leo. I talked about my much less exciting dream of being an architect, of building spaces that felt like home. I confessed my fears that I was just a numbers guy, good at math and physics, but lacking the creative spark to build something truly beautiful. She listened, really listened, not just waiting for her turn to talk. She told me that buildings were just large-scale sculptures, and that the logic of numbers and the poetry of art weren't so different. She made me feel like maybe, just maybe, I had that spark in me after all. The minutes turned into an hour, and still, no bus. We talked about everything and nothing. Favorite books, terrible movies, the best place to get pizza in the city, the feeling of the first sunny day after a long winter. It was strange. I'm usually a pretty reserved person, but with Alara, the words just flowed. It was like we were two old friends catching up, not two strangers killing time. She had this incredible ability to make you feel seen. Then she looked at her watch, and her face fell slightly. "My bus should have been here ages ago," she said, a little deflated. "I'm heading out of the city for a while. A residency, it's a huge opportunity." I felt a pang of disappointment that was surprisingly sharp. This brief, wonderful connection was about to end. Our little bubble at the bus stop was about to pop. As if sensing my thoughts, she tore a page from her sketchbook. It wasn't the grumpy pigeon. It was a quick, impressionistic sketch of the bus stop, with two figures sitting on the bench, bathed in the golden light of the late afternoon. It was us. "Here," she said, handing it to me, "a souvenir." On the bottom corner, she scribbled something. "What is it?" I asked. "A promise," she replied, her smile returning. "In 5 years, on this exact day, at this exact time, let's meet back here." Same bench. I was stunned. 5 years. It sounded like a lifetime. What if? I started a dozen what-ifs swirling in my head. What if one of us forgets? What if our lives are completely different? What if you don't show up? She put a finger to her lips. No what-ifs. Just a promise. 5 years. I want to see the buildings you've designed, and you can come to the opening of my gallery. She said it with such certainty, such unwavering belief, that I found myself nodding. "Okay," I said, my voice barely a whisper. "It's a promise." Just then, two buses pulled up at once, as if they'd been waiting for our conversation to finish. Hers was going north, mine was going south. We stood up, the moment suddenly feeling very final. 5 years, Leo, she said, giving me one last, brilliant smile before stepping onto her bus. I watched as it pulled away, a splash of color disappearing into the city traffic. I looked down at the sketch in my hand. Beneath our two figures, she had written. The beginning, those first few months, the sketch was pinned to the corkboard above my desk. It was a constant reminder, not just of Alara, but of the promise. It pushed me. I stopped seeing my job applications as a chore and started seeing them as a challenge. I remembered what she said about the poetry of numbers. I started looking for the art and the architecture. I got a junior position at a small, innovative firm. It wasn't glamorous, but it was a start. The work was hard. The hours were long. But every time I felt like giving up, I'd look at that sketch of two people on a bench, and I'd keep going. A year passed. Then two. Life got busy. I moved apartments, got a promotion. I even started dating someone. The sketch moved from my corkboard to a drawer, and then to a box in the back of my closet. It wasn't that I forgot, not really. It was more that the memory became softer, dreamlike. A magical afternoon with a girl I never saw again. The promise felt less like a concrete plan and more like a sweet, impossible fantasy. The city is big. Pool chain. 5 years. It's a long time. Sometimes I'd walk past a gallery and wonder if it was hers. I'd see a woman with a sketchbook and my heart would skip a beat, but it was never her. Life went on, as it always does. My career took off in a way I never expected. I was part of a team that designed a community library, one with huge windows and a reading garden. I poured my heart into it, thinking about creating a space that felt like a hug, a place where people could connect. During the opening ceremony, I found myself thinking of Alara and her belief in me. The 5 years were almost up. The date loomed in the back of my mind. A few weeks before, I found the box with the sketch while cleaning out my closet. I unrolled the slightly yellowed paper. The charcoal was a little smudged, but it was all still there. The golden light, the two figures on the bench, the words, the beginning. A wave of nostalgia and a strange sort of anxiety washed over me. Should I go? It felt absurd. She probably wouldn't be there. She probably didn't even remember. It was just a silly thing to young, idealistic people said on a sunny afternoon. My girlfriend at the time thought it was ridiculous. You're going to stand at a bus stop waiting for a woman you met once, 5 years ago? She asked, not unkindly, but with a healthy dose of skepticism. And she was right. It was crazy. But the night before the promise day, I couldn't sleep. That conversation had changed something in me. Alara had seen a spark in me that I hadn't seen in myself. Whether she showed up or not, I owed it to that version of myself, and to her, to honor the promise. So, he went. On the day, at the time, I stood at the same bus stop. It looked different, yet the same. The bench had been replaced, and a new digital ad screen flashed nearby. It was a gray, drizzly afternoon, a far cry from the golden sunshine of that day. I felt foolish, standing there, clutching a portfolio with photos of the library I had helped design. People rushed past, heads down, buried in their phones. 10 minutes passed, then 20. The drizzle turned into a steady rain. My hope began to dissolve with it. She wasn't coming. It was a silly dream. I was about to turn and leave, to finally put the memory away for good, when Primera Sa Doble Italiano, taped to the glass of the bus shelter, protected from the rain, was a piece of paper. It was a flyer. My heart started pounding. It was an announcement for a gallery opening. The gallery was called the Bus Stop. And on the flyer, there was a familiar drawing, a grumpy-looking pigeon pecking at a French fry. The gallery was just around the corner. I ran, my portfolio forgotten, the rain not mattering. I pushed open the door and stepped inside. The place was filled with light and color and people. The walls were covered in paintings and sketches, each one telling a story of the city. And there, in the middle of it all, was Alara. She looked different, older, more confident, but her eyes were the same. They sparkled as she talked to a guest. Our eyes met across the crowded room. A slow smile spread across her face, a smile that said, "I knew you'd come." I walked towards her, a grin I couldn't contain spreading across my own face. When I reached her, I didn't know what to say. "You kept your promise," was all I could manage. "So did you," she said, gesturing to the main wall of the gallery. And there, hanging in the most prominent spot, was a large, beautifully framed painting. It was a rendition of the sketch she had given me. The bus stop, the two figures on the bench, awash in impossible, golden light. But this time the title beneath it wasn't the beginning. It was 5 years. We both just stood there. looking at the noise of the gallery fading away. They talked like they had known each other longer than an afternoon, and in a way, they had. Some promises, you see, aren't just about time. They're about the journey you take while you're waiting. Thanks for watching. If this story resonated with you, let me know in the comments. And don't forget to like and subscribe for more stories about the connections that shape our lives. See you next time.